I'm very excited and honored to be joined by Geeta Gandbhir today to talk about her Oscar nominated and BAFTA nominated feature documentary, The Perfect Neighbor, which I have just rewatched. So if I seem a little shaky, it's because it's incredibly moving, emotional, powerful, urgent, important, relevant to everything that's happening in this country right now, which I'm also doing my best to pay attention to. I actually have tissues here today because I might need them. Geeta has such a distinguished career that I can't possibly do justice to her biography in a couple of sentences. And she herself is so humble. She told me, just introduce me as filmmakers. So that is a complete undersell. But we will have her bio is going to be on the post. You can read it. It's so distinguished, and honestly, she should be top of mind for all filmmakers, whether in documentary or fiction. And in fact, she has a background also in fiction. Okay, let's start by talking about The Perfect Neighbor. I'm also, just so people know, a huge fan of Geeta's short documentary that is also nominated for an Oscar. And so we will also be touching on The Devil is Busy, a really, really beautiful, moving, and also important short film. Start with The Perfect Neighbor. Geeta, I know that this story is not abstract for you, that Ajika A.J. Owens, the woman who's killed in the film, was a close friend of your extended family.
Correct.
I wonder how that personal connection shaped what you felt you could and could not do as a filmmaker.
Sure. So I think Ajika was my sister-in-law's best friend. Just to be clear, my sister-in-law is actually my cousin-in-law, but she functions in my life, as like a sister-in-law. That's how she refers to herself. Culturally, we don't differentiate, so that's my sister-in-law. I could not love her more. So, she was close to Ajika, and the night that Ajika was murdered, we got a phone call. We being myself and my husband, who's also a producer on this film, Nakan Kwan too. And it was a distress call, and we immediately sprang into action to try to help. And we were on the ground immediately trying to bring media attention to the case because it was not really being covered in the news. And we know without media attention, often cases like Ajikas can just be swept under the rug. They don't. I think, unfortunately, gun violence and the murder of black and brown folks, is not that, again, is usually there's not that much attention, or there might not be. We were busy for 2 months. Again, we filmed some pieces for social media and for the news. We were able to get Pamela Dias, who's Ajika's mother, on The View, which really helped. Whoopi Goldberg was kindly a big supporter, and also Sunny Hostin. They were very helpful, and Tom Leonardis, who's Whoopi's partner. So, and then about 2 months in, Susan was arrested eventually, and 2 months in, we received the body camera footage from the lawyers, from the family lawyers, and they sent it on a thumb drive, and they were like, "Can you go through this? There's so much of it. Just look through it. Is there anything we can use for the media? Is there anything we should be keeping an eye out for?" And I'd never seen anything like it. Nakan went through it first, 30 hours of material. When you never have that around a case like this, like around a shooting. It's usually a couple hours the day of. But so the footage, I strung it out. I used to be an editor, strung it out and had to organize it and sync it. And it was multicams and layered, multicams because multiple police on scene. A lot of it was body camera footage, dash cam footage. There was also detective interviews. There was ring camera footage, just a myriad of material. And after stringing it out, I realized there could be a film here. And coming from a scripted background, the footage looked and played to me like a horror film, like Paranormal Activity or a Blair Witch Project. He was so immersive. It was also undeniable because you could see this sequence of events as they occurred for 2 years. Essentially, the footage went back 2 years. And that was so striking to me. And so I had nothing else to offer the family. I'm a filmmaker. I didn't have money to give them. I didn't have, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. Like I wanted to continue to support somehow. So I was like, I could maybe get this story out. We could tell the story of this community and what happened to Ajika and try to push back. against these sort of dangerous laws like stand your ground. That's which Susan was emboldened by. And we're which is notorious because of the Trayvon Martin case, right? Trayvon Martin's murderer walked because he claimed what he did was self-defense. Those are the tenets of stand your ground. You can say I was afraid for my life, I had to shoot someone or I had to kill someone. And people weaponize that law and sort of use it to commit crimes and try to get off. And I think, so I offered that to the family and said too, if it makes any money, if we are able to sell it or license it to someone and any money comes, I will give you the majority of it. Ajika's mother was left with 4 young kids that were basically orphaned at the time. And so she had to suddenly, this young grandmother, they were suddenly in her care. So that was the impetus for making the film. There was also grief work for us, I think. My family was devastated. I was heartbroken, by what, just by having, I couldn't bear seeing them so sad, and so it was process, it was grief work, it was kind of group therapy for us to make to put this film together and to put it out in the world.
You've talked, and by the way, you're a multi-award winning editor. So I think you had a particular eye in examining all this footage and understanding how it could be put together into a film that is so compelling and clear-eyed in the circumstances and the human beings who it's showing us in the lead up to this really horrific murder. You've talked about wanting to flip the body cam footage so that it reveals the point of view of the tight-knit Black community who are basically feeling a little like they're under surveillance, and you completely succeed in that. Maybe can you walk us through a scene, a specific one where you felt it landed well or was most powerful for you?
I think for us, the body camera footage can be a tool of surveillance, but it's also, particularly in this time period, becomes increasingly more important because without it, as we see, I think believe in Ajika's case, and also in the more recent case of Renee Good, what's happening in Minneapolis, and, again, just the violence that's occurring there without that body camera footage. Lies are being spewed. Things are, the truth is not necessarily being told. It's incredibly necessary to have it to make sure that law enforcement and government operatives are required to wear it and document. Just the importance of documentation cannot be stressed enough. In this case, like I said, oftentimes with Black and brown communities, body camera footage is a tool of surveillance. It's a way to sort of record what the community is doing, and just the police in general are seen as this invading force that, disrupts the community and does great harm. In this case, we wanted to take all this material, and when I say flip it, it's like reverse the use of it, which was, again, it's police. It's, even though it is the perspective of the police, we really wanted to flip it to showcase the perspective of the community that they unintentionally captured. They captured this beautiful community, this beautiful multiracial community as they were before this terrible crime occurred, and you never get to see that. Gun violence is all too common. We often see in the aftermath, we see the grieving family, we see, we hear the news, but we don't get to see, the kids playing in the street, again, as Soledad O'Brien often says, the kiddiest kids, right? We are often criminalized and we are, as people of color, are often criminalized, our children are adultified, and the footage is kind of undeniable, right? Again, it is events unfold as they did. And I think, and we were not there on the ground directing anything or telling people what to say, it's just what it was. And I think one of those scenes is a scene with the kids. To me, it always stands out, where the police come and the kids who are precocious and loved and very confident come and surround the police when, have a lot to say about Susan and what's happening. And also, there's a little girl who says, "We're 11," about the accusations that Susan is lobbying, that they're trying to steal her car. And she's like, "We don't know how to," the cop is like, "Do you guys even know how to drive?" And she's like, "We're 11. And that, to me, I think you cannot deny that these are children. And Susan's complaints were about children. Interestingly, they were not about the adults.
Right.
So I think that is a fascinating, or for the most part, they were about the kids. So that, to me, was sort of taking the use of that camera and making sure that the community's voice is heard.
Yes, absolutely. They are children. And it's so interesting, that point about children being adultified, because one of the obvious sort of observations about Susan is that she's an adult who acts like a child and gets away with it. and gets protected. So the film feels like a thriller. A lot of critics are describing it that way, as a true crime, but you resist that label. I wonder how you prefer.
Sure. So we never thought of it. That was not, again, I feel like you make something and you put it out in the world and then people label it how they see fit. And I don't mind it, but it was not the intention. To us, it was a film about a crime. But again, I was trying to make something that played more like a scripted thriller, that played like, that was immersive, that didn't do too much hand holding, that felt like elevated, sort of premium cinematic art. That was
It
my goal.
does. How you manage that with this footage too is pretty remarkable. It's
Thank you. It was a lot of work,
neat.
honestly, to make it feel. I had an incredible editor, who I have my
Yeah,
best credit, an incredible team. Again, Nakan Kwan too, my producer, Elisa Payne, my producing partner, the great Sam Pollard, who's my mentor, was an executive producer on this. But it's a lot. Yeah, it was. I mean, this is evidence. It's
yeah,
police evidence. It was not shot to be a film. It was not. The sound was terrible. I mean, it was just meant to be, it was never meant to be on a screen.
yeah.
And so it was to make it feel that way, to make it feel seamless, to make it feel cohesive as a film was a huge challenge, but I think it was one Viri and I took on willingly. But I think that as far as the idea of true crime, I think like I said, once you put something, true crime is a relatively new label that
Mm,
things get. And I think for us, if that was, for us, I think however people receive it, it
yeah,
meets you where you are, and I don't,
yeah.
it's to me, all that matters is that people watch it.
Exactly. I think that helps it maybe transcend certain limits. Yeah, that more people watch it is the point.
That is all we care about.
Yeah. So almost 95% of the film is on this one street in Florida, and you've described it as a microcosm of violent America, which I completely agree with. Can you speak a little bit about that? Because it's not just local, it's extremely national. As we've said, it's really urgent, it's really relevant to everything that's happening in this country right now.
Sure. Well, I think what you see, it's interesting because I see that little street actually as being the best of us. It's sort of, we use, again, this multiracial community, as I said, living together, loving each other, strong social network, raising children together. Like you see the parent, it always strikes me, and the other neighbors. Again, there's two white women who live on either side of Ajika, and one of them says to the police when they come about a group of kids, he says, "Which kid is yours?" And she goes, "Oh, they're all mine." And I was like, that is the most beautiful response.
Yeah,
That is, and then if there's a father who comes out and says, "Oh, I look out for all these kids like they're mine," and he knows, he's like, he talks to them like they're his. And the kids are supervised and loved. Like there's always multiple parents watching them. They're playing football with them. So in some ways, it's this idyllic oasis, but
yeah,
then what you have is this sort of lurking threat. And I think Susan she weaponized race, she weaponized victimhood. She managed to weaponize victimhood, and she tried very hard to weaponize the police against the community. She didn't quite succeed in that, but what she did succeed in was using her race and her privilege they basically to play victim, and they believed she was sort of just a harmless nuisance, and they really believed the community was worth protecting. So I think that ultimately, part of what she was trying to do worked
yeah,
because they brought their own biases. But
right.
the microcosm that I see is, again, the best and the worst of us. Right now, we are in such a polarized time. We have been polarized on purpose by
Mhm.
powers that be.
Yes.
And a manufactured fear is a tool of an authoritarian government to do
Yes.
this. And I think Susan, again, that's what she used. It's a
Yeah.
manufactured fear. I'm
Yeah.
afraid for my life. I'm afraid of my neighbors. So therefore, it's my right to pick up a gun and shoot someone over a very trivial dispute. And once you are that far gone, the question becomes, what else would you be open to? What else would you tolerate? What else would you accept? What else do you think is acceptable? And would you tolerate, war? Would you tolerate genocide? Would you tolerate your neighbors being kidnapped and incarcerated in concentration camps? I think so you could be safe. This becomes the question. Do you believe that, what other lies will you believe? So I think this is, again, and we're seeing this play out right now in Minneapolis. We're seeing it play out across the country.
Yeah.
this dangerous polarization, and it's something that we have to push back against.
Yeah, that's so well said. You mentioned the grief work that was part of the process with the film. How did you do that grief work? How did you manage to review this traumatic footage in the edit again and again, being close to it and caring as you do? I mean, I literally just watched the film again and I'm like,
Yeah, no, it was, well, as you can see, I've gone completely gray. This is happening anyway, but I feel like it was exacerbated. But honestly, I think for me, there is something when you make a film, like in making a film, or I imagine writing a book, or in being an artist, where for me, I had to know, I had to understand it. Like I was like, I have to understand how this happened because it seems so unbelievable to me. So the diving into it and trying to piece together the story actually was helpful to me because otherwise I just felt helpless. It's almost like when you know when something terrible has happened, you feel you must do something, which I think a lot of us are feeling right now, right? Like how can I do? I protest? What do I do?
yeah,
Do I donate? Who do I call? How do I support? Right? How do I help? This was my way. And I think this is what artists do. Artists are always on the forefront of
yeah,
trying to, on our society of like they're the vanguard of the revolution, right? And trying to do revolutionary things. I don't know, making a film might not seem revolutionary, but getting the story out to the world to me was what I knew how to do. And so it was helpful. And for Ajika's mother also too is a person of faith who really believed. Ajika had big dreams. Had really, which I may have told you, she had really big dreams. She was young. She wanted to be a world famous entrepreneur. And she used to say to her mom all the time, and one of the last things she said to her when she would talk about her ideas was, because her mom would sometimes laugh like moms do. She'd say, Mom, just wait. You just wait. Like one day the whole world is going to know my name. So for us, that was her hope. That's what she wanted. She's a big spirit, vibrant person, very
yeah,
funny. And so for us, that's what we're left with.
yeah,
So to try to get this story out, it feels like a mandate for us. It feels like a mission. And I think for her mother, who, like again, her faith is so important to her. She's like, this is Ajika's will. This is what she would
yeah,
have wanted.
yeah,
And the other blessing we've had is we were able, because of the sale to Netflix, allowed us to give the majority of the money to the family
wow,
and to the children, for the children's, to give them some respite as far as securing their
yeah.
future to a certain degree.
Yeah, yeah, because we understand from the film that she was such a good mother. She was sacrificing and giving her four children everything, like all the after school programs,
Yeah.
everything that they
Yeah.
wanted. So that's super heartbreaking, and it's impressive that you've made this and gotten it out, and that we're having, I mean, doing these conversations is what I suddenly felt like I have to do as many of these as I possibly can because it's incredible what's in these films and how important it is that people get to see them and understand why they should, why they matter.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's been an honor for me too this year to be among a cohort of films that are really doing this kind of work, that are very political and dealing with really tough issues and kind of exposing them to the world.
Exactly. So your film quietly indicts the stand your ground and broader self-defense narratives in Florida and elsewhere in this country, and without needing experts to kind of spell it out. What misunderstandings about these laws or about threat do you hope the film will correct?
So I think one of the things, particularly, so it's a combination, right, of like the weaponization of race and like sort of stand your ground incites racialized violence.
Mm,
And also lax gun laws, like terrible gun laws. Like in Florida, you can buy a gun, like you can buy a toaster oven or an air conditioner, right? And so Susan was able to access two. And she should have been flagged by the police after her third call, where it was unfounded. There was no emergency services needed. But instead, she was just sort of ignored, right? Or they just said she was a nuisance and let her be. And which, again, that basically prompted her to take matters into her own hands, and she researched Stand Your Ground. So Stand Your Ground exists in some shape, form, or fashion in about 38 states in the country.
okay.
And in different forms, right? It has sort of different rules around it based on the state. But
Mm,
the idea is that if you feel you are an your life is an imminent danger, you can defend yourself without having the duty to retreat. Now, Susan could have retreated. First of all, she was behind a closed, locked
Right.
door. She could
Yeah.
have gone into her bathroom and locked the door. She could have put two doors between her and Ajika, you know, multiple doors, and waited for the police. But instead, she decided to shoot Ajika through her front door, which was locked, a metal door. Ajika could not break that down. She's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's, again, that's some sort of like turning Ajika into, you know, racializing her and turning into her some like superhuman monster, like not possible. Sort of harkens back to the super predator
Yeah.
concept, right?
Yeah.
So I think for us, you know, you could always claim self-defense in a court of law. You could always do it, you know? So like that right has always existed. So this additional layer of stand your ground, particularly when we live in a place where racialized violence is again such a common occurrence, but also, you know, it's where oftentimes people who use the law or abuse the law get off when the shooter is white and the person who they are quote unquote defending themselves from is not.
Mhm.
You know, again, that only incites people to use it, you
Yeah.
know, to think of a way, it's a way to commit a crime and get away with it or
Yeah.
set up a crime.
Yeah. So the title of the film comes from Susan's own words. Early on, she describes herself as the perfect neighbor. What did you want this title to convey to audiences?
I think it's sort of like it's about self-reflection and like holding a mirror up to who we are. I think we all think about ourselves that way. I think we all think of ourselves as like good people and we are well-intended and we are, you know, and when there is a dispute, it's like, no, it's not, I'm not the problem, it's them. I'm not the problem, it's them. You know, I'm not the problem. Like, even if I pick up a gun. So, you know,
Right.
like, and I really hope that people think about our communities are the first places we show up in. It's the
Yeah.
first place we show up in the world. Well, our home, there's our family, right? And the internal sort of space of our homes, but then it's our community. And how do
Hmm.
you treat your neighbors is indicative of how you might treat others in the world and how you function in the world. So I'm hoping it drives people to ask that question about like, you know, am I the perfect neighbor? What is the perfect neighbor? Like how do I shift that? You know, how do I maybe do something different? What's really interesting is the film sparked a little bit of a TikTok trend
Yeah.
called I Am the Perfect Neighbor, where people watch the film and then were like, let's do something different. And then they would
Wow.
post what they were doing with their neighbors or for them. Like one woman posted that she was letting her kids play on with the basketball hoop on her lawn, you know, and she was like, because I am the perfect neighbor. This is what perfect neighbors do. So there has been some
That's
really sweet, positive stuff out of it that I'm hoping continues also.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you and Elisa Payne and Sam Pollard built iMessage Pictures with a mission to tell immersive, innovative stories about people of color, women, and marginalized communities. And I understand how The Perfect Neighbor fits into this, but I think it's an opportunity to speak about all of the work you've made and probably will bring us that is so critical.
Yeah, thank you. So I think for me, message picture is just sort of the culmination, like you said, of a long career. I'm lucky to have been around that long, but and work that I think my first film that I ever worked on was Malcolm X because Spike Lee gave me a chance.
I did not know you were. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, so I was in scripted for a number of years, and the majority of my work was with Spike. So I think Spike, again, inspired me. He was my training ground, or his 40 Acres was my training ground. And I think the idea of films that carry a deeper message, you know, don't shy away from uncomfortable political situations or are open to talking about these things was how I came up and what I understood to be filmmaking. So for me, I think the Sam Pollard was part of that trajectory as well. If anything, I spent even more time with Sam after that. I met him through working with Spike. But
Yeah.
so I think for me, the message pictures is just sort of the culmination of that training and the work I've done along the way, where it's like we want to make really propulsive, compelling, immersive films that tell an excellent story, excellent character-driven stories, but again, there is a message in there. Like there is something in there. Becomes a vehicle to speak about a deeper issue.
Yes, so deep and so layered and so well made that it's not didactic in any way. It is entertaining, it's complicated, and I did read an interview your producer Lisa gave on Substack that was saying that she wanted it to play like a scripted thriller, which is what you've also just said, and it does. And I wonder how, when you were crafting it as a filmmaker, as a director, as an editor too, how you were thinking about the pacing and the sound and how to structure the whole film, really.
Sure. The structure we quickly understood needed to be chronological because each scene builds and you see the escalation
Yes.
of the situation. So it was sort of organic that it would be chronological. I think we wanted the audience to feel like a lobster boiling in a pot. I know that's a horrible,
No,
but it's
I
that
think,
slow boil
yeah,
where it's happening, and you're not sure it's happening, but you
no,
feel really uncomfortable. I forgive me, the audiences, but I really wanted people like on the edge of their seats, like why, something is very wrong. And I think it's like that, in the best horror films, they don't bang you over the head with it. It's this slow, insidious feeling. And one of the things that I compare it to, and this is also, I wouldn't say the movie, but the book, this is crazy, but Stephen King's book, It, where
yeah,
it felt to me like, again, set in this idyllic community, this
yeah,
where there's, it seems everything seems perfect, but there's something wrong over here, and only the children can see it. Only the children know. And to me, that was similar because the children saw the worst of Susan. She waved a gun at
yeah.
them. She was cursing at them. She was
I
terrified.
know.
They were
Yes,
scared of her sometimes. Like
right,
there was
right.
definitely, they would, yeah, sure, they're precocious kids, but they were also scared of her. It's like they didn't know. And I think the idea that you are in their perspective, you're in the community's perspective, and, this threat is just growing, but nobody knows what to do about it, was really the way that I wanted it to feel. And we had great sound, like the score is part of that, the sound design. We wanted it to feel tonal and immersive,
Mhm.
and for you to be terrified. And then when the terrible crime happens, and then you just don't know what's going to happen. Like, is she
Yeah,
going to walk? Is she going to get off? Is she going to be found not guilty? Sort of. We also wanted people to experience what we went through, that real feeling. So that was also part of the immersion.
yeah. I don't know if you want to add more. I feel now you've addressed how your previous work, your experience working with Sam Pollard, even winning an Emmy on When the Levees Broke, has built to this moment. But is there anything additional you want to add to that question of your narrative and editorial training adding to this? Because it's such a challenging film to make.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you for saying that. I would say too, it was so important to believe in the vision. There were times when I faltered, and Viri, my editor, was really great at being like, no, we committed to this. We're sticking to it. Like I believe it. And I think trusting the vision and trusting the audience was
yeah,
important because I was like, is this too, I mean, it was on my mind. I did feel that like, I wanted it to have a home and to sell because I had made a promise to the family and I wanted to take care of them. I wanted to figure out a way to, if it had, like, it could have just ended up on YouTube, which there was nothing wrong with that. But that responsibility weighed on me. And I think, so I struggled with that sometimes. And I think Viri was very clear and she was like, believe it. It's, it's not just an experiment. Because I was like, is this too experimental? Who's going to watch this? Why would they
yeah,
watch this? We made
yeah.
it very independently for no money. And then
Wow.
I got into Sundance and I was like, aha, okay.
Yeah.
And then the sale
And
came. Yeah, the directing award. We won the directing award for US competition, and then the
yeah.
sale came. And so I think the idea of like really believing in your vision, even when it seems bizarre, is critical.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So now I'd like to add in a question about another film that you have that's Oscar nominated this year, which is a short called The Devil is Busy, which I really, really loved and appreciated. It's set in post-Roe America in Atlanta, following a security guard named Tracy in an abortion clinic, and I loved it. What a beautiful, beautiful portrait of her and what everyone in that clinic goes through to do the life-saving work that they're doing for healthcare for women in this country. Do you see a conversation between these two films, maybe? Yeah.
100%. They're very, and so I had an amazing co-director on that film, Crystal Wright, who's also my best friend from college. So both these films were made with like essentially my family. So it is such a thrill for them both to be nominated because it's basically like my sister-in-law jokes. She's like, you're doing Take Your Family to Work Day. Like we're going together to the Oscars. I was like, no, first of all, my family did the work. So it's not, but we laugh about it. Like show up in like a bus, like the bus with all the family and the
That'd
kids.
be good. That'd be good.
But the film started with Soledad O'Brien and Rose Arce. They really wanted to make a film about after Roe fell at the federal level. They really wanted to make a film about the impact, and they came to me.
Great.
So we spent about a year with Amber Faris, who's a producer, amazing producer on it, searching for the right story. Because the real question is like, what hasn't been done before?
Yeah.
What's an angle into this that we can come up with
Yeah.
that could again change hearts and minds?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted something immersive that felt like put people in a situation that
Mm-hmm.
felt like heightened. And when we found that clinic, that was part of the research, we realized that that was the place. And Tracy was the person because Tracy the day starts with her and ends with
Yeah.
her. And she is the front line of defense for that clinic. But also fascinatingly, she's a very passionate Christian.
Yeah.
And she is. So there's protesters outside, men,
Yeah.
I just want to point out, yelling
Yeah.
all day, right, at people who come in and they're very aggressive.
Right.
It's fascinating.
Using Christianity.
Weaponizing Christianity against women and the people at the clinic. And Tracy is on the inside, again, practicing technically the same faith,
Mm-hmm.
having a completely different perspective on it, she's in there believing that women's reproductive freedom, justice, and is critical to the health of our democracy, and that again, reproductive health care is a fundamental right. And I think that to me, I was like, my God, I've never met her. She's like a unicorn, and maybe she could help open the door for people who might be struggling with this issue. And
Yeah.
also, she's just incredibly brave and
Yeah.
passionate. Wonderful, and we fell in love with her and wanted her to adopt all of us, even though we're the same age, basically the same age. Like she's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
a force.
Yeah.
The film,
Double.
yeah, the film was meant to be representative of a day in the life of the clinic and the staff that are making life and death decisions every day
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
great risk to themselves.
Right.
So that was
Right.
the point.
I'm so glad you made that film. I'm so glad that it's not just abstract. I mean, we're all reading Jessica Valenti and we're all trying to track every change happening in this country, but that it brings it home in the most moving way. You've shared what you hope the film can do or what it's already spontaneously done, inspiring these TikTok videos. People watching the film is already a good action, becoming aware of how bad these stand your ground laws are, how bad gun violence and racism and all of it is in our country right now. Is there anything in addition to being moved by the film and wanting to take care of your neighbors and knowing the importance of documenting what's happening in this country on your phone, especially when there are ICE raids and all the rest of it? Is there anything in particular that you're hoping? Are there concrete actions people can take?
Sure.
Yeah.
So there is an impact campaign for The Perfect Neighbor. People can go to standinginthe.gap.fund.org. My sister-in-law and Pamela Dias, Ajika's mother, started this impact campaign. And it's basically they're working to support survivors and families who have survived racialized violence. And they are also looking to push back against stand your ground laws. And state by state, that's a place that people can go to sort of find out how to get involved and see what they're working on.
Amazing. We'll put that at the end of the post. Thank you. I mean, we've gone a little bit over. I feel you've given us hope throughout. Yeah, I am so grateful for you and your films and this film in particular. Both of the films that you have out there right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor.
Yeah, no, my honor.